That little startup music makes me just move around and dance and move. Not like my salsa does, but it gets us going. Happy Tuesday, my favorite day of the week. Say it every week. You guys are probably like, ja basta. She says it every week, but it's the truth. I love being here every Tuesday. It's always so amazing. And I always have amazing people who join me. So if you haven't noticed, Miss Amanda has become a staple for our Love Shouldn't Hurt, because we need to make sure that our ish is tight and that it's real. And she gives us an amazing therapeutic view. So tonight I will be joined again by the awesome Miss Amanda Peguero. She is a licensed professional counselor. Before we get into tonight's topic, a couple of things. As per usual, let's remind folks what we did the last time we were here. Last week, right before Valentine's Day, perfect timing, we spoke about self-love and why that's super, super important for so many people, because a lot of us, let's be honest, we lack the self-love within ourselves, within our families, our children. We look for love in other things that are outward, but what we forget to focus on are ourselves. What makes us feel good? What makes us feel content? And why is self-love so important? So last week was amazing. We had Jessica Narvaez Toledo with us, and she was great in expressing her journey with me through my self-love, and also just giving a lot of helpful, informative information to our audience, which was awesome. As per always, I want to remind all of the people who are watching and those who continue to join us weekly and who are just joining us today, welcome. Remember that we are here, obviously, for domestic violence. So as a reminder to all, if you feel as though you are in a situation where you are dealing with domestic violence, a loved one you know is dealing with domestic violence, or someone who is living in the home with you, a friend, or you yourself, please, please, please reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also reach us at loveshouldnothurt.com and all of our social media platforms. So tonight's topic, as per always, is another one that will get people going. I feel like it's super, super important, and I can't wait to dive into it because I have a few personal examples from myself. Remember, transparency is my number one on this show. But our topic for tonight is, can the abused become the abuser? Which is super, super important information. So as always, let's welcome on our amazing licensed professional counselor, Amanda Peguero.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me yet again.
We love you. You're stuck with us.
I'm okay with that.
Cool. So we love having you on. We love getting your views on the different topics. Tonight is a stinger. One that a lot of people kind of think, yeah, I can resonate with that. When I was looking up information for the show, because I always want to make sure I research prior to doing these shows so I know what I'm talking about, you see that there's a very thin line between being the victim and being the abuser. And that's it's not neither here nor there. You can't say, oh, well, she was abused and that's why she was an abuser. It's not just black and white. There's a lot of things that kind of get people to where they are. And like I said, I have personal examples that I would love to hear your feedback and opinion from, because I think as someone in your field and your expertise, knowing about trauma and how it affects us in the past, it's super important to talk about it with someone like you. So before we even get into the topic, you have any general thoughts before we start about this topic?
As you were just speaking, the first thing that came to mind was that comment that everyone's abused is traumatized. That's not true. Everyone that's abused is not traumatized. Just like everyone that's been abused does not become an abuser. Right? So it's exactly what you said. There's factors and circumstances that might happen that lead a person to becoming an abuser. However, there's also circumstances where the person directly wasn't abused. They were witness to abuse, and then they abuse. Subconsciously or consciously, so that's the first thing that popped into my mind when we talked about the topic, as well as what you just said.
I think it's easy to. Lucy Maldonado, my love, I see you. Hi, welcome to the show tonight. It's something that I thought about, especially with verbal abuse, because I think that when it comes to us in relationships and different situations with our partners, family, friends, because we're guilty of doing it with everyone, I think verbal abuse is something that all of us are guilty of at some point, especially in instances where you are feeling attacked and your just gut instinct is to do the same. It's kind of like, give you back what you're giving me. You want to disrespect me or demean me. That's my response to it. I'm going to do it back. So it's easy to fall into the realm of also being the abuser. I think it's super easy, and people just don't realize that, and they don't know the differences.
I think it's just real quick, Chrissy. I also think it's important that perception be put into the conversation, right?
Absolutely.
Because what you just described about verbal abuse, there's people in abusive relationships that you look at them and you go, how do they speak to each other that way?
Right.
Right? And when you call it by that name, nah, we don't abuse each other. We're
Right.
fine. Everything's perfect. So perception is also a key component of how we label or how we identify what we're calling being abused or an abuser. Because how
Absolutely.
many people who were abusers actually admit openly,
Yes.
yeah, I did that, or yeah, I wanted to cause harm, or I wanted to cause them pain, or whatever. They don't admit that. What's always there's an excuse attached to it.
Right.
I didn't intend to hurt. I didn't intend to, like, that's not what I meant. You misunderstood, you
Right.
got me angry. Like, so perception is always a key component when you're talking about trauma or being a victim, a survivor, or a perpetrator of abuse.
Absolutely. And I think with that even being said, what you just said, I think that I have played that role. I've played the role where they've gotten me so angry that my words do become abusive or they do sound aggressive. And then now I'm placed in a situation where I'm like, well, you just made me angry. And you brought that out of me. And it makes you, when you think back on the situation, like, could have chose better wording, could have said it
Mm-hmm.
differently. What did I feel like when they said it to me? I'm not any better doing it that way. I see that we have a comment. Jacqueline, we're going to come back to your comment. We want to make sure that we touch everyone's comments, but it's a pretty big one. So I want to make sure that we get to it at that point in the show. So we do see your comment. Thank you for giving us feedback. We are going to come back to that comment. So before we do that, I have a few facts. Like I said, I researched and a few
Mm-hmm.
just things that I read that kind of like, woo, to me. So the first one said, it is a search for power and control. By becoming an abuser, someone who has been abused can play the role of the more powerful person in the relationship in an attempt to overcome the powerlessness they felt when they were being abused. Which is, I'm telling you,
Facts. Mm-hmm.
facts. Like talking about transparency, you're going to learn a lot about me today. Not just
Okay.
you know me personally, but people that are watching, because, being someone, I've said this before, being someone who wears this crown, right? This invisible crown. I run love shouldn't hurt. I'm everything domestic violence. I'm so against it. But it's difficult to carry that crown because when you're carrying that crown and you're in a relationship, you do things sometimes that per se will look like you're the abuser. So it's difficult
Mm-hmm.
because you're like, oh my God, you're on eggshells worrying about how you behave, how you react, because you're like, I
Mm-hmm.
carry this crown. How dare I do this or say this or act a certain way? Even
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to my own child, when I'm speaking to her in instances or things that I deal with or agree with, and she's like, you run love shouldn't hurt. And, so it's difficult when even your kid checks you, So tonight we're going to talk about all of that because, like the article said, there's a very, very thin line. And as you stated, they'll say things like, oh, it wasn't intentional. I've been there. I've said things that are impulsive because at the moment that's what I felt. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh, I didn't mean it. But you said this or that. It doesn't make it any less bad. I have to check
Mm-hmm.
myself prior to saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But that just let's stop 1 second. So that's really hard for you to say. I'm going to check myself before I say it, right? Because
yeah,
emotions run your being, right? So if you are
absolutely.
in an emotionally driven situation, I don't know a lot of people that could be like, Wusa, don't say what's about to come out of your mouth. Like, think about it. Like, usually it takes a lot of internal control and self awareness. And I'm going to always push self awareness because if I know what's happening with me and my body, then I can gauge whatever trigger I'm claiming you have on me. I can control it so that I don't get to that place. But if I'm already not, let's say you're busy with work, you're busy prepping something for Love Shouldn't Hurt, and Alina comes in and says something, and you're like in the midst of doing something, and you turn and say something really snippy. You had not 1 second to think about. You see what I'm saying? So again, I think it's important to put into this conversation today resolution,
Yeah.
because resolution and communication can always assist in mending. It doesn't mean that we're not perfect. There are going to be moments you're going to try your hardest, you're going to try not to do what you just described, but we have to make sure that there's a resolution or there's communication in the back end, not of excuses, not of it's your fault and pointing fingers, but more of, let's talk about what just happened. Let's talk about how that made you feel. Let's talk about how I could have done it differently. Let's talk about how we could have engaged differently so that my needs were met and your needs were met and we both ended not being upset at each other.
Right. Right. So for folks who are coming in and out of the show, if you have not had the pleasure of seeing Miss Amanda Peguero before, this is Amanda Peguero. She is our licensed professional counselor, and she's given us a therapeutic view tonight and her own personal opinion as well of can the abused become the abuser. And I resonate so clearly with this, and I'll be honest that there was a purpose behind this topic today. An argument is what sprung the topic of tonight, total transparency as always. And it was something that made me say, maybe we should talk about that. Maybe we should have some feedback on that, because during that transition and that exchange, it was so heated. And then after you, like you said, you sit back and you think back on the situation, it's like, was I? Am I? Type of thing. And like worrying, like, you know, and there's a lot of things that go with it. Like you said, I mean, when you're being antagonized or someone's purposely hitting all of your spots because they want to hurt you, you know, it's difficult to stop and be like, I know what they're doing. I know what they're doing. Because
not
in the
moment, not today, Satan.
Yeah, that's right. Right. It's hard. And you're going like this, and your girl Melissa just said your curls are popping, Amanda.
Oh, thanks, girl. Let your husband know. Her husband loves my curls. That's why I said that.
We need to do another show? No, I'm joking.
No. We in a little competition, you know.
That's so funny. So another one says abuse victims, like anyone in relationships with high emotional reactivity, what we just said, build automatic defense systems, which include preemptive strikes.
Yeah.
If you expect to be criticized, stonewalled, or demeaned, you may well do it first. Victims can easily develop a reactive narcissism that makes them seem like abusers. Absolutely.
It's like a costume, right? So I'm going to protect myself and I'm going to put on this gear because before you hurt me, I'm going to be ready and I might end up hurting you. Oh, well, I'm protected. But there's an excuse, right? There's a what's it called? Ay, Dios, se me fue la palabra. Like, basically, like, this is my reason. That's not the word I wanted to say, but this is my reason for why I'm doing this. It's not you, it's me. But if you happen to get hurt in the meantime, in between, oh, well, but I'm sorry. Yeah.
Like, well, Carmen Gonzalez, her comment, she says, I do believe that the abused can become the abuser. It's all they know. It becomes their safe haven. What you're saying, because at that point, if you're going through something and you're worried that the person is going to say something that hurts you, that's their safe place. I'm going to abuse you and hurt you first before I let you attack and abuse me.
The thing is that do they see it as that? Like, do I see myself, let's say I'm not that person that's now abusing, right? Do I see myself as an abuser, or do I see it as a coping mechanism? That's the word I was looking earlier. To say, no, this is my protective gear. This is my superhero gear to make sure, my superpower, where I'm not going to let you in, but this is how I learned, because in the past, the only way that person responded was when I reacted this way. That was the only thing that got me close enough to have them have a reaction to maybe back off from hurting me. So now anybody that has any similarity, it might just be literally the way their eyes look at me. I now feel like, that's an unsafe person. I need to be like arms up, stay away.
Yeah. Let's see. We have a few small comments here. Jacqueline says, I totally agree. An abuse can become an abuser. She also says at times they feel that's the only way you treat people. And Carmen says that's a good question. So I want to give you some behaviors that I have actually done. And this is why I wanted to do this, to have a conversation about this. So everybody that watches me, everyone that knows for the past 2.5 years that I've run Love Shouldn't Hurt, everybody knows my story. They know that I was in a very, very highly abusive physical relationship, emotional, mental, everything for 6 years of my life. Almost close to death. It's crazy because a comment was made today and I was having a conversation with Michael Maya and she's like, you never said that out loud before. So what if that really would have happened? You know, we wouldn't have never known what happened or whatever. And the comment was a joke, but it was serious. It was something that was said to me at the time. When the person said it today, it was a joke. But at the time, it was said to me all the time. At the time, it was always said, I'm going to bury your body in penny pack and no one will find you. Today it was said as a joke, but back then it was said to me constantly. So I was always on edge. So that's my story. You know, besides the abuse in that relationship, I had previous relationships that were very mentally demeaning, verbally abusive. I've had friendships who have treated me like trash. So I've gone through a lot of craziness throughout my life, especially even as a child. I went through sexual abuse for years. So I have a lot of baggage, and I'll call it that. For anyone that dates me or is with me, I do have emotional baggage because I did go through a lot of suffering. So it's allowed me to, not allowed me, but it's made me who I am now. And like you said, I'm always on the defense. So when disagreements are happening, when I feel attacked, I may come off as attacked. So during an argument, I was told that I am the abuser, that I am the person who abuses, right? And I'll give you the example of what was going on during that time. I'm in a relationship at this time. And when I'm arguing with the person, and I'm speaking in general sense, not currently, just in general, I was in a relationship and I was being attacked verbally, just like, you know, this person is better than you and they're so much smarter than you. And you're just a victim. You've always been a victim. You're always going to play victim. And then they pulled out their cell phone and they started to record me as we argued. And no matter how many times I tried to smack the phone out of their hand and say, stop it, you're trying to antagonize me, they wouldn't. They continued to record me, get close to my face. If I would come near them, even though I was with this person forever, they would push me away and say, get off of me. You're trying to attack me. You're trying to hit me. But really, I was just trying to get the phone out of your hand because I don't know who you're showing that video to. And in the moment, yes, I lost my mind because I feel antagonized. And like, why are you pulling out a camera on me? Like, what is going on right now? So I flipped out. And when I say flipped out, I mean fist pumping, smacking, whatever you want. I mean, trying to hit the phone, throwing things at his hand to get the phone out of his hand, screaming, cursing, yelling, and I mean, pulling my hair. These were things that I was doing. And when that was over, 2 or 3 days later, I was told, you're the violent one. You're the abuser. You were trying to hit me. You are losing your mind. I'm going to let people know that you're crazy. And I've thought back on that instance plenty of times because I've been told that that video has been shown to folks. And I'm like, does that make me the abuser? Does that make me like the person who's violent? Or was it just my reaction? Like I question myself constantly. And my only answer to myself is that I felt antagonized. I was embarrassed at the way that I was behaving. So I didn't want you recording me. And I'm going to do anything in my power to get that phone from you and camera from you because I don't know how you're going to try to damage my reputation later on. So listening to it as someone in your, field, I don't even know I don't know what to describe myself as or say, yeah, maybe I'm an abuser, like I'm just at a loss for words.
So first off, as a individual, as a woman, I have a hard time with labels, right? Because I think labels tend to come about because of one or a couple incidents, and then they stay with you forever, even if things change, right? So could you have instances where you are abusive? Maybe. Are you an abuser?
She froze up. Hopefully we'll get her back. We want to hear what you have to say, Amanda. You froze on us. We'll get her back. I'm not sure. She might be having some technical difficulties. I think she might be back. Is she back? Are you back?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can hear you and I can see you. Can you see me?
You're moving now. Go ahead. It's okay.
All right. I'm so sorry. I was saying, there's instances and circumstances that maybe you acted in an abusive manner. Does that now make you an abuser? Are you actively going out there and looking for situations or circumstances where you are now physically, verbally, mentally, abusing people? Do you see yourself that way? And I would ask that to you because it sounds like there was an incident in your life where this person knew your triggers and was using them to get you riled up. But now, how would that be described as an abuser would be my first question. Like if we were sitting across from each other in a therapeutic setting, my question to you would be like, describe to me what an abuser is. Give me the characteristics of what an abuser is. And that is going to be different for everybody, Christina, because 5 people on your call right now might agree on 5 things, but there might be 5 other things that they each have that they go, oh no, I don't, like, that's not something I can relate with, right? Because again, let's bring perception into the conversation. However, that incident to me is one incident. I actually wanted to go back to the conversation that you said that today someone said to you, like, oh, I'll bury you in Pennypack Park. And my question to you is, what did that trigger for you? Was it instantly like, oh yeah, it's a joke? Or was it like, that's weird? And then, oh yeah, that was a joke.
Well, it was more, the conversation wasn't about me. The conversation was about a dispute that they had with another person, and their response to them was, do whatever it is that you want to do, but I'll bury you and you'll end up in Pennypack Park. Okay. And when the person said it, I initially was like, sounds familiar. And then after a few minutes, jokingly, I said to that person, yeah, I remember you saying that to me. And they just totally ignored it and kept talking.
The reason I took you back there was because I think that a lot of time people think that abusive behaviors are aggressive behaviors. But abusive behaviors can be in the sense of humor. Like, you know what I mean? Like someone, like in that circumstance with the phone, it was humorous to the other person. It was not to you, because the way you're describing it is like, oh, look, I got you. Like, I got you on, I got you on my phone. It was a game, right? It didn't sound, at least from how you described it, aggressive. But does that mean that wasn't abusive behavior? Well, does that mean that it's you?
No, it was aggressive. It was in the midst of an argument. So in the midst of an argument, he pulled out his phone, kind of like, I'm going to get you now on camera so people can see that you're crazy type of thing.
Got it.
But it was like, you waited till you led me there. Like the conversation was minimal and the disagreement was minimal. But then he said something that he knew would definitely hurt me and I would react to.
Yes, but in the moment with the phone, was he aggressive or was he calm and you were a mess?
He was calm, but it wasn't in the joking. It was more of, I'm going to record you.
Correct. So that's what I'm saying. So
and I'm in the middle of, what are you doing? Like, why are you recording me?
Because when we think of abusive, that's what we think of. We think of aggressive, loud, like, like hands, everything you described, versus if I'm watching the recording and all I hear is, people are going to see you now. They're going to see how you are. Yep. This is how you truly are. Like, even that tone is condescending, right? But if I don't know that, I think like, how calm that other person is and how crazy does she look? Absolutely. She must really be abusive towards that other person. So that's what I'm saying, that it's about being able to decipher like what's going on, and that's why I have a hard time with labels. In my profession and personally, labels are hard because if we only go based on what we see, then a lot of people are abusers out in the world, right? We can label them that. When in reality, abusive, I'm going to talk really quickly just about sexual abuse really quickly. So a lot of times people think that children, adults who were sexually abused were abused by a predator that was like evil and like kidnapped them and got them in an alley. And no, over 80% of children and adults that are abused is by someone they know, someone they cared for, someone that they were in a relationship with, right? So what does that does not send I'm afraid of this person. It sends a message of like, oh, well, you were with them. You like them. You like spending time with them. They did. So it's no different when it comes to verbal, physical, like there's that honeymoon stage, right? There's the sweet and kind. You get me all riled up in who you are. And then when you show me the true colors and you trigger me, then you go back to the sweet and kind or humorous or calm. And I look like the crazy person.
Yes. Another instance, I said this in my documentary, I said it in the book, and I say it all the time. So I speak of the day that I almost killed him. That in turn, he abused me for 6 years, physically, mentally, verbally, and physically was terrible. Dislocated my jaw, broke my arm, had hurt ribs. Like I was physically beat, hurt badly. But if you go back to that time with him, I'm the abuser for that one instance, because that one time I finally fought back, and he has scars that have lasted his entire life. He was attacking me. He was verbally abusing me. He was calling me all types of things, and he came at me to punch me, and I ended up knocking him on the ground and ended up on top of him. And then I just started stabbing him, and there was stab wounds all over him from my heel of my shoe. This wasn't premeditated. I didn't grab a knife, But because he continued to come after me and scream at me and call me these things, and it had been at the end of the 6 years of being abused, I finally was like, ya basta. If you hurting me tonight, I'm gonna hurt you too, but you going into the grave. And I stabbed him and stabbed him and stabbed him. And for life now, he has those things on his chest. So for him, no, you're the abuser. You're the abuser. And I'm like, are you seriously saying that I'm the abuser after 6 years of you beating me and almost killing me? I'm the abuser because I fought you back. Why? Because your bruises now are there. They're all over your body. Like Carmen said, I was defending myself. I was over it, and I didn't know how far he would go. So I defended myself. But till this day, when we have these conversations, I'm the abuser, not him.
Of course, because his scars are visual. Like, for me to see your scar, I would need an x-ray of your jaw. I would need an x-ray of your arm to see if there's any broken, bones that have now healed, or, all that stuff. So, of course, he has an everyday reminder of what that incident where you went berserk, or whatever he's calling it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Self-defense is not an abuse, a victim being an abuser. That's you protecting yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right. An abuser is a person who consistently, repetitively does things to hurt another person. Whether it's verbally, whether it's physical, sexually, mentally, emotionally, like consistently, through manipulation, through withholding, through isolation, through, actually using weapons on them or their hands. That is what an abuser is. So if you find yourself that you are doing that consistently to your children, to your partner, to your sisters, to your brothers, to your parents, then you're an abuser. But if in the moment, and this is not scientific, this is not theoretical, this is just human nature, we are going to defend ourselves anytime we feel under attack. Now, the issue is if that you always feel under attack, then you're always going to be in attack mode, and you can then become an abuser because people who aren't attacking you, you are attacking.
Right. Right.
So it's about being able to be in connection with your emotions and yourself to know, like, okay, these are the things that trigger me and these are the things I need to stay away from, or finding a balance. And I'm going to always promote it because it's my career and what I do. But therapy, I always say this, and it doesn't have to be a licensed professional counselor, an LCSW. It can be your clergy person. It could be, someone that you really respect that is neutral and not connected to the situation, for you to work out these problems and for you to be asked these questions. To be asked, like, what makes you always want to, like, curse out people when you see them at the store? What makes you always want to, speed up behind people when they cut you off in the car and come out your car with a bat and want to hit their cars? Like, what makes you want to do that? That's a lot of anger and built up, something.
Yeah. So another thing I looked up was research and clinical experience clearly indicates that abusers are likely to, and it has a whole list. But one of the things that they say is label their partner's behavior as abusive.
Of course,
which is what
you're the problem.
Yeah,
it's you.
You're the
like it never goes like, oh, it was me. It's you. You're the problem. You made me do this.
It says use negative labels: irrational, hysterical, lazy, unreliable. I've heard that time and time again. Even my recent relationships, just hearing, you're the victim. You're the one that's crazy. You're the one that's irrational. And it's like, I'm none of those things, but you're making me out to be because you antagonize me and get me to that point. And when I become defensive, now I'm the person who's bad. I'm the person that's terrible. I had an argument once, same deal. I was being recorded while we were having an argument. And this happened all the time. Our arguments were recorded every single time, no matter how many times I pleaded, stop recording me. Stop recording me. They would record me and record me. And then they're they're manipulative. As they're recording me, they're being mean, but very calmly, as you stated, like, you're crazy and that's okay. And that's why I don't want you. And even saying things that are not true. Like, we don't have and it's like, who are you showing these videos to? Because in the video, like, oh, we don't have a sexual relationship. Are you crazy? You're disgusting. Knowing that you're with me and we do have a sexual relationship. We've been in this relationship all of these years, but you're recording me. And now you're saying things that are going to definitely piss me off. And I'm sitting here, thank you, Delilah, and I'm sitting here and I'm reacting to them. And I'm like losing my shit. Like, what do you mean? Like, you're saying all of these lies. Who are you showing this to? And now I'm flipping out to the point where the last argument, I ended up smacking him on the chest because I was trying to smack the phone, and I smacked him on the chest and he moved his face. So the edge touched his face. Oh my God, you run love shouldn't hurt. You just smacked me in the face. And I'm like, I didn't smack you at all. I was trying to grab the phone out of your hand. No, you smacked me. And I'm like, I did not smack you, but that's what you're going to say in this video to try to make my image be tarnished. So it's like over and over again, you hear these conversations. And when I was with her father, it was the same thing. Like, you're crazy, you're local. But it's like, there's a thin line there, but am I the abuser? And like, every time I look back, I'm like, no, you were antagonizing me. You were getting me to that point where I was going to flip out, but you're turning it on me now so that you can look like you're not the abuser. When clearly, as I stated to other people who have seen this video, if anybody has seen the video and you listen to the person talking and you hear how they're speaking and how I'm reacting, it only takes common sense for the person to think, dude, you're crazy. Like, why would you report her? You clearly are doing it to piss her off, type of thing. Sorry. So this one says how the line got blurred. Emotional reactivity and the victim identity movement. It says abuse victims, like anyone in relationships with high emotional reactivity, build automatic defense systems. And they develop a narcissistic trait as well, which is what we've been talking about. So it makes it really difficult for us to remain just the victim and not the abuser. When you're constantly getting attacked, you kind of, like you said, in turn become that person who attacks back.
So like not to compare us to lab rats, but think about like all the studies they do with lab rats, right? When you consistently do something over and over and over, it becomes a routine. Think about like, you know what? Think about a pet. Let's not even go. If you have a pet, even if it was a baby, a puppy, or an older pet, you can train them by consistently creating the same routine, right? It's the same thing in an abusive relationship, right? If I create the same routine where I push these buttons and I see you riled up, and then the last button is for me to record you, for you particularly. Like the last button, it sounds like for you was, oh, let me record her and really make her look crazy, because now it goes beyond you and I. It's now, you just said it a couple times. Who's he showing these to? Who's watching this? So now there's a multitude. Now in your mind, it's a delusional thought of like, it's going on social media. It's going to show it to all these people. He's trying to damage my brand. Like all these things that you represent can go down the drain when it's a one-sided view. Right? And I think that that's even happened on the show, right? Where like people don't like what is being said on the show and want to come in and chime in with their point of view. But you know, they always say, right, there's two sides to the story, and then there's a third. There's a truth. But in lies, somewhere in between is the truth. And the reality is that the only truth any victim has to think about is their own.
Absolutely. So we are past the 30 mark, but I want to remind folks who are watching, if you are involved in a domestic violence relationship or know of anyone who is dealing with domestic violence, to reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. 1-800-799-7233. It is always scrolling across the bottom of our screen in case anyone needs the support. You can reach out to us as well at loveshouldnothurt.com and all of our social media. So I read a story about two sisters who were dealing with abuse as a child and how their lives currently are. And this is an excerpt from that reading. It says, my sister was able to retain her loving heart, able to seek love, had a child, and raised him successfully. She didn't repeat the abuse she had endured. She told me she basically used our mother as a negative role model. If my mother did it to us, she did not do it to her own child. He turned out great. I, on the other hand, became a total workaholic, avoided dating and intimacy altogether. I never have been in love, but I'm okay with that. I enjoy my very serene and peaceful life. I am too fearful to repeat her same mistakes. Which I think that's all of us at some point. You either have, like they say, you have that good devil and that angel that's on one side, and it's like, who do you listen to? And some of us who have dealt with abuse in our past and dealt with negativity in our past, we look at like our kids. Like I've said before, when the day that I had my daughter, I don't know if I was going through postpartum. I don't know what it was, but I called my sister about 5-6 hours after I had her, and I called her to, let her know I was okay. The baby was born. She was okay. And I started to cry. And she's like, what is wrong? Are you all right? And I was like, how can I be a good mother to her if I'm not good as a person? Like, how am I going to raise this girl to be positive and live a positive life if I'm not. And it was me fearing all of my past abuse, fearing like, how can I be good? I feel so broken. Like so many people have taken so much from me. How can I now be a good parent to her and be able to support her? And I think that's how it is too with abuse, because you're scared. I've been through so much abuse. If I have a kid, what if I end up doing the same thing? What if I end up abusing them and beating them and doing things that they did to me? Even in relationships, like it's not just men who abuse, women abuse too.
Correct.
So because I've been in a relationship that they've abused me, am I going to get into this new relationship and become abusive as well?
I think that everyone fears that their past negative parts of them is going to affect their future adult life, whether it is as a parent, in their career, in relationships, and all of that. I think you're aware of this. And because you're aware of it, you're actively doing something to kind of like minimize any effects of your past relationships and the stuff you went through and your brokenness, as you describe it, so that it doesn't transfer into onto your children. I mean, there are very few people in my life that I know, both professionally and personal, that aren't trying to better themselves for the people around them. For the most part, I want to be better for my kids. I want to be better for my spouse. I want to be better because I want to be a great human being, whatever, you know. For the most part, that's why people come to therapy. They want to address something internal because it is affecting their world as they know it. And the one thing we're talking about tonight is about abusers. And a lot of times, the one piece that's missed is that sometimes victims don't become abusers, but victims allow abusers to remain in their world. And I'll give you an example of that. Which means, does that make them an abuser as an accomplice? Like, you know, we can go into that conversation. So the story you just shared to me was very interesting, because a story very early on in my career was I had two twin sisters, same situation. They were physically and sexually abused by their stepdad. The one sister, however, was spoiled with a lot of gifts or whatever. So she had a very distorted thought of what that relationship was like. Right. So she grew up and remained with a relationship with her mother and her stepdad. The other one moved miles and miles away. It sounded so similar. It was interesting. Didn't want to have no kids, did have relationships. They were toxic sometimes. Well, the sister who ended up keeping the relationship with the parents ended up having children and would leave her children at the home with the grandparents. So I don't have to tell you the moral of the story. You know what happened to her children. So now there's two generations of children that are being physically and sexually abused. And she cannot in any way, shape, or form, the sister cannot in any way, shape, or form understand that she shouldn't have taken her children to her parents' home because they didn't protect her. So why would they protect their grandchildren? She was literally feeding them, you know, more victims. So it came down to like a battle, you know, and she had to turn her sister, and she reported her sister. And now she's with two kids. She's taking care of two kids that are, you know, are her nieces and nephew. But what does she do? She doesn't know what to do. Yeah. The only thing she knew is that she never wanted to have them be hurt again. And that was a big burden on her because she hadn't worked out her stuff. Yeah. But those kids were, you know, talk about like, you know, they talk about helicopter moms or whatever. Like she was on them all the time. She didn't let nobody watch them. That drained her and tired her out. So it's about finding a balance of understanding what trust is like and being able to trust people, but also talking to the people around you about the things that you need. I think we talked about it a little earlier. Like if you and I can have a conversation as friends and say, listen, in our friendship, what I need is this. And then you don't meet it, then at some point I need to exit that relationship. And I know that it's easier said than done. So don't think that I'm saying like, oh, we're just going to have a convo one day. It doesn't work out. Okay, deuces, bye, Christina. I don't want nothing to do with you. Life is fun. There's too many strings attached to detach, especially in an abusive relationship. However, a victim that becomes an abuser had to have lived in that circumstance for so long that it became a norm. And that's what I'm trying to get at. Like it became so normal that it wasn't abuse. It wasn't labeled as abuse. It's just like, that's how we show love. That's how we talk, you know, and then tomorrow we're fine and we sit down and eat dinner again, or we go to the movies, or, you know, whatever we did before the pandemic, we just keep doing it. So it's not abuse. It's just we got into a tiff.
Right. So we've talked about, could I be, could they be, could a person be, right? So what happens when you do? When you are abused in the past and you do become the abuser? Now, I don't see Teresa on here, but Teresa is a devout follower. And when she saw the poster go up, she said that one of her own battles is that learning after her abuse, not being abusive back, not cursing the person out, not trying to hold her tongue and things like that. And she felt like she had to go through that so that she could find out who she was, because she was abused so much. Her attack now was everybody she was with, F you, F that, whatever type of thing. I've never gotten to a point where I feel like I am the abuser, because I have tried in all of my relationships. I've tried to not, and I try because it's not always the easiest thing, but to always be respectful of my relationships and speak to them positively and have my moments, yes, where we argue and disagree. But for the most part, I've always tried to, because I know that I never was given that respect. But I have plenty of people who have told me that it's difficult because they feel like they have become that person. And for all the reasons why we said, they felt like they had to go into these relationships with their guard up. And if being the abuser first is how it happened, then that is what happened. I have women who wrote to me who couldn't watch the show. They're like, I can't watch your show at night because I'm working or doing whatever. But I have become the abuser in many of my relationships, and that's why I've stayed single, because I've been abused so much that now that is me. When I go in, I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me. I'm going to curse you out. I'm going to smack you, whatever I got to do before you do it to me. So what then happens in those instances when you do become the abuser?
So the first thing I thought of is that you're just self-sabotaging, right? You're like, I don't want to be in that place again where I have to use the heel of my shoe to survive, right? So if you're in that fear mode, you're functioning off of fear, you're never going to be able to trust anyone. I saw that Carmen wrote, trusting is difficult. Like, hell yeah, it for sure is, because you can only trust yourself to protect you. So that's going to be hard. So the one thing that is coming up for me as you're talking is, okay, so in order for us to move on from a past of abuse is to be able to understand and to give the words. And I just said this to the other person, because we can't do this alone. We've said this from jump, right? You didn't do this alone, and no one in this call has seemed to have done it alone. There's always been someone or some people or a village or a community that support them. It's about giving those words. Like, think about how you would have reacted if a new relationship, right, triggered you and you guys are in a heated conversation and you started to get loud and they said to you, Christina, I love you, so I'm going to leave the room right now because I don't want to say hurtful things to you. What would that do to you? Look at your face.
Yeah, because, I've never had that happen.
Correct.
So to think about it, I'm like, I probably would be astounded, like, for real?
Correct. And let me tell you something. As a person who's not very aggressive in relationships, that happened to me. And I'm like, the hell? You walking out on me? See how I interpreted that? You walking out on me. I'm having a conversation with you and you're walking out on me. It wasn't till like the no return phone calls or no return text, the nothing, like the text message response was, stop texting because I do not want to say hurtful things to you. Like, that's love. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's respect of like, I do not want to cross a boundary with you. And this was a new relationship. I do not want to cross a boundary with you because once we cross it, it's going to be very easy to consistently keep crossing it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So there's times where I have had to learn as a woman to say in friendships, igual que like in romantic relationships, and igual con my children, to say, I've said this, I need you to get out of my face right now because I'm not going to be very nice and I don't want to be mean to you. Yeah. Right? And it's that self-control, but you have to know that. But also, the other person has to know. And we've talked about this in the past. Like, you don't go to a first date and say like, oh, here's my buttons, push them. Yeah. But at some point, right, if you are given of yourself, you start to talk about your buttons. I think the conversation should be, this is my button. The counter button is this. Whenever you or I hit this button, this is your job. If you signing up for this, your job is to hit the counter button. And the counter button is to say, I love you, walk away, don't touch me. Some people don't like being touched, don't touch me. Or give me a hug, sit with me, hold my hand. Just do things that make me happy. Go get me a glass of water. Tell me, let's walk outside. Let's get a breath of fresh air. Our love isn't a battlefield. Like, let's really make this a love, a love environment, and not an aggressive, like, let's fight and kill each other. And I think that that's missing. We've talked about it a million times. Communication is key. But if anybody remembers anything today, is that whoever pushes your button, the only person who has control of that button is you. So think about, what is the counter button to that? What is the counter thing that will snap you out of that? Like, I'm in fear, I need to protect myself, guards up, get up, you know what I mean? Like, shield up. Like, what will put that down for you to feel safe again? And if you don't know what that is, then I would say start seeking for that, because no one can give you that but you. Because someone took it away, yes. Someone took it away. But only person that can give it back to you is you. Because if you don't trust nobody but yourself, I can come in and I can give you the most love, attention, affection. And Chrissy, you know me. I am fun loving, and I can laugh, and we can, girl, positive thinking. Let's go. Let's do this. But if you're not receiving what I'm throwing, what I'm putting down, or whatever the saying is, like, you're going to be like, this girl's crazy and she don't know me. She needs to sit down. So you need to figure out what that is, and then communicate that to the people that love you, so that when they see you not in a good place, they can pull you back. And with consistency of that and pattern of that, then you will find yourself in a new place. And then you'll be looking back, yo, remember when I was like crazy, like flaring hands and like smacking and throwing shoes? You'll be like, those were the days, huh?
Yeah, they're not the days. I want to reminisce them.
That's what I'm saying. But you'll think about them and laugh, versus like being traumatized by them.
I'm still a little traumatized. There haven't been many. My daughter's father, that moment of stabbing him, I think that that's a memory that'll never leave me, because I think that it's one of those, like, when you do these shows and stuff, or when you see stuff, people can pin a comment and it stays there through the whole show. I think that me doing that is like a pin that I put in my life, and it just stays there, because I always go back to it, because I always think, if she didn't cry, would I really kill them? And like, people are like, you're extra, but I'm serious. If you had to be there, like, the blood was everywhere. I was stabbing this man. My neighbor was banging on my door like, Chrissy, don't do it. And I'm screaming, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. And just stabbing him and stabbing him. And my daughter, my 2-month-old daughter, crying is what like woke me up out of it. So I pinned that in my life, and I've thought about it forever, because I'm like, had that moment gone 2 minutes longer and I like hit an artery or whatever the case may be, and I killed them, I'd be in jail for the rest of my life.
So let me ask you a question about that. How much, what's it called? Residual income do you get from that pin?
0.
So what's the point of the pin?
I don't know. I think, even though it was such a tragic moment, I also feel like it also was a triumphant moment for me, because I had never fought back in those 6 years, and he did everything that he wanted. He kicked me, he punched me, whatever. And that was the first time that I ever allowed myself to fight back. My first and last time I ever fought him back. And it was like, whoa, type of thing. Like, my boy had a black eye.
Got you. So I'm going to recommend
behind dude. And it was like my day, like, wow, I must have had aggression. And the funny thing is that he saw a family member of mine 2 days later at Home Depot and had sunglasses, and took them off to show her, and said, your crazy ass cousin did this to me. And my cousin said, I know my cousin. And if she did that to you, there's a reason behind why she did that, because she would only do that if it was deserving.
So since that pin is not bringing you any residual income, I will recommend put intention and intent in how you let it live rent-free in your house. Do you see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying with that is that this last portion of how you just answered my question gave me way more weight on how it benefits you than what you've told me thus far, right? Because you fought, you stood up for yourself. That is the benefit of this story. And the reason I'm saying that is because words have power.
Yeah, they do.
Right? So if we put our words into just all the negative that has happened in our life, then that's what we sit in. It's like we're in a cauldron of like all this negative stuff that happened in our life. There's some positive in there, yeah, but like, let me tell you how it got to the positive. All these bad things. So I say all that to say, and this is for everyone in the audience, I love that you use yourself, because then I can talk to you and they can kind of understand what I'm saying. When you tell this story in the future, I challenge you to say, yes, there was an incident where the abuse got to the point that I lost it. I blacked out and I almost nearly killed this man. That was the day that I realized the power in my child and me had together. Like, that just gave me chills just saying that. Understand? Like the power that I as a woman had of coming free and releasing myself from this man. This is still giving me chills as I'm talking to you. Because that's power. Eso tiene tanto poder en decir eso. Versus, let me tell you about how I almost killed him.
Yeah.
Nobody really cares, right? Not that nobody cares, but the people who care about you don't care about that part, because the people who don't care about you just want to hear it. This is a new recording. Oh, now I got her on her show talking about how she almost killed him. Let's not give them that power. Own your power, own your intent, own your words, and then you are not an abuser. You were abused and are speaking of your experiences and are living because of your experiences, and hence you react a certain way differently than maybe other people who weren't abused. And I'm gonna leave it at that.
You got me speechless. I'm like, and everybody know me. No, I can't be speechless. I talk that whole lot.
I just really want people to realize that putting intent in your word is powerful, because words are powerful. We've been talking about words every time I'm on your show. We're talking about the demeaning statements, the names you were called, the things that were said about you. Those are all words. Sometimes the words hurt more than the los golpe.
I say that all the time. Emotional abuse is not talked about as much, and it's probably one of the worst ones, because the emotional anguish that I still deal with now, and I've dealt with for all of my life, and I'm 40, is tremendous, because all of those bruises that I got way back when, they're nowhere. You don't see them on me anymore. You know, all I have is photos that I took when they happened. They're gone. I don't even think about them unless I've seen the pictures. But what was said to me and what was built in my brain has never gone away. I've been in relationships after that where when the person and I are breaking up and they say, I'm done with you, it could be as easily as them saying, listen, it's just not working out. We're just not compatible. Instantly in my head, it's no, because I'm worthless. No, it's because I'm fat and because I'm ugly and you want better. That is what I've jumped to. And I've done it my entire life, self-sabotage. The person, and I've had like the man breaking up with me say, I never said any of that. Like, I never said any of those things. I just don't think we're compatible. But in my mind, I don't want to hear that. I know you're breaking up with me because I'm not who you wanted me to be. And I'm just worthless and I'm a piece of crap. And they're like, who said this? I never said any of those things to you.
So I want to leave I'm not leaving the show, but I want everyone on the show tonight to take one thing today. So think about what is the button or the thing. So I'll use Chrissy's example. So the recording, right? So the recordings, as well as the messaging, were things that still kind of like trigger and take control. It's almost like someone hits play on the tape recorder and then you hear those messages, even if the person in front of you isn't saying those things. Then counter it. So for you, I would say, at least once or twice a week, record yourself with positive affirmations and listen to them every morning when you wake up. The first person you hear is your voice telling yourself you're beautiful, you're amazing, you're kicking ass, you're doing the show, you're taking care of your daughter. She's growing to be a beautiful young lady. Like all the things, like before you go to bed, record it. Or write it down and read it in the morning, but you have to actually hear it. A lot of times we think, if I think it, no, speak it into the existent. Write it down. Use Post-it notes. Put them on your mirrors. Put it on your car steering wheel if you have to wake up to go to work every morning. Make it I don't know if I still have it. Yeah, I do, but I have a whole bunch of messages. Make it the lock screen on your phone so that you could see it, so that you remember, like you have to, you can't really tell, but you see I have something here. It says productivity and completion of tasks. You can't read the front of it. It's because every time I pick up my phone, you got to be productive, Amanda. You got to finish these tasks. I'm a procrastinator. That's just my issue. But it's those reminders. Create a vision board. If you haven't created one, you don't have to don't get fancy. Don't like, oh, I got to get all the magazines or you got to, nah. Go to the dollar store, get a poster board. If you want to buy fancy craft stuff at the dollar, don't go outside of the dollar store. I promise you. Oh, you could go to Walmart. Walmart has some good stuff too. But if not, just write it down, draw it, do it together with your kids, do it with your girlfriends, do it with your friends, put on some good lively music, jam to it, pour yourself some wine or some seltzer water, whatever you like to drink. But you have to put intent in how you speak, in how you think, and how you move. I just saw your message across the screen. But
that's
you have to
that's someone from my team, so no, that's not me.
Okay, I know.
Like,
but here's the thing. No, I'm not promoting that. I'm just saying you can go there. I'm not paid by I'm not endorsed by any of these people I'm mentioning. But honestly, you have to put intent into your life. Wake up every morning and put intent. And if you need to hear someone tell you that you're beautiful, it should be you. So record yourself. And it has to be, remember, affirmation. For anyone who hasn't heard this, affirmation statement have to have the 3 P's. Make sure I have 3 fingers. 3 P's. Positive, present, and personal. So I am beautiful. I am worthy. I can do everything I put my mind to. I can wake up every morning and kick ass. Those are affirmation. Or I will wake up every morning and kick ass. It has to be present, positive, and personal. Now I'm going to shut up.
No, you don't have to shut up. We love you. But before we go, we have 5 minutes left. I mean, technically, we have any time I want because it's my show. But technically, people think it's an hour. We have 5 minutes. So I want to go back to a few of the bigger comments that went up so that we can see them. Jacqueline Luna said, I've seen a case where a person who was in an abusive relationship treat the next relationship poorly because how that person was treated. It's likely they think that is the only way a person can be treated. I think, yeah, that would have a lot to do with it because if you've gone through a lot of previous trauma or abuse, and for some people, like some people go, when I was with my relationship with my daughter's father, I've had relationships, but they weren't long. They were like date somebody in college type of thing. He was my real first relationship. So for me, that was my learning process. Like, is this what relationships are about? Like, is this how they really work? Like, this is my first committed relationship. We live together. So I do think that one's past can attribute, to what they believe could be abuse. Carmen says, I do believe that the abused can become the abuser. It's all they know. It becomes their safe haven. Absolutely. I saw another big one to make sure you get it. Ray Velez, you had a right to do what you did. You're defending yourself, and I don't see you as an abuser, but I see him as a bully trying to give you a bad reputation. Mm-hmm. Believe me, I've felt that way many times too, because, when these videos are being recorded, like you said, I don't know who you're showing it to. So you're making me out to look crazy. And, I've heard from someone, oh, I've seen the video. And it's like, at the time when it was going on, that is why I flipped out. That is why I'm throwing stuff and I'm fighting and I'm scared because you're doing it. And now it's so much time later that I'm like, that's okay. That makes that person look bad and not me. Because if you're taking advantage of that weak moment and that moment where, yes, I lost my shit. There's no hiding it, no secrets. I lost my shit, and I would, if anyone were to question me like, yo, I saw this video. Okay. You tell me how come you're going to keep if this is what happened right before it. Tell me how come you're going to be. Absolutely, I flipped my shit. Absolutely, I'm throwing chairs and books and everything. Because what do you think got me to that point? It obviously somebody harassed me enough prior to this recording to make me angry. Of course I got to that point. But now it makes you look bad as the person because why would you record me in that state? It makes me look like a bully. Someone from my team, because it wasn't me. CMV, I'm CMV. You are a strong person, strong woman with loads of honesty. You are human and you have feelings. No one is perfect. You are overcoming obstacles and learning through this amazing organization as well. Thank you for being a part of a great example for us that love shouldn't hurt you. Thank you. You're welcome, whoever you are. But know that I am growing through what I grew through. If that makes sense. Everything that I go through this organization is allowing me growth as well. Because like I've said to Amanda and plenty of other people, I've been through the abuse for years, but never received therapy for it. So this has been therapeutic for me to be able to have dialogue with women and men who have gone through it and lived through it. And even sitting with you, like you and I are friends, but we don't have therapeutic conversations. So having that time with you is like, yeah, that makes sense. This one is for you. Amanda, do you ever feel that sometimes rough love, not physical or verbal, more like rowdy, makes the person understand better if being calm doesn't work?
So I think I'm a little confused about the question. Like if the abuser is rowdy, I think I need Ray to clarify,
Ray, can you
please.
Clarify what you mean there, Ray? We'll go to Margie's and Ray will respond. Margie says, so what happens when you're doing your best to changing for the better, but the person you are with is constantly reminding you, of the bad things you did in the past? Should I just walk away and call it quits or stay and continue to do my thing regardless of what he says? I have an answer, but I'll let you go first.
So my answer is going to be I can't tell you what to do, Margie, but you know what to do. And if you're asking the question, is because you know what to do and you need validation on what to do. So I'm going to say this to you. You should only change who you are because you want to change who you are to make you better, not because it's going to make someone else's life better. You only have control of yourself. I always say this, hurt people hurt, right? I say this all the time. However, people only treat you the way you allow them to treat you until you realize I don't deserve that anymore, and you change the way you interact with them, right? It's no different than what Christina said, right? All right, Christina went really far and almost killed the man, but she had to. But at that point, something changed. Something clicked in her head, and she said, I need to change this for me and my kid. And here we are today.
Yeah. Ray wrote me via text. He said what he meant is just the person. I don't know if he means the abuser or the person, but he said just communicating in general. Like instead of just
so someone who like talks rough.
But someone that talks rough, maybe that's how they do it just because they think that's the only way you'll get it.
I'm going to use the same thing I just said to Margie. I shouldn't have to change the way I communicate in regards to so we know there's all types of communication styles. So yes, I communicate with Christina differently than I might communicate with my mom, granted. However, if I'm trying to get a point across and you are used to, I actually have a prime example. I have had friendships where their environment, family environment, is that they call each other names and they degrade each other when they get angry at each other. And then tomorrow it was like, oh, you pissed me off, but we good now. Yeah. I don't function like that. So the friendship would push me to those limits. To push me to want to call them out their name. And I would be like, you know, I'm not going to do that, right? You like, I'm going to get pissed off and I'm going to tell you about yourself, but I'm not going to call you out your name. I'm going to call you on what you're doing wrong and what's pissing me off. So I'm going to describe the behaviors. So I love doing that. So what you're doing that is upsetting me is, or I am feeling right now really angry because the words coming out of your mouth are making me feel degraded. I'm not going to be like, oh, you ain't no good. Nah, we're not going to do that because then I feel crappy. Mm-hmm. So no, I'm going to express, it sounds it's almost like I'm trying to like mime but in words, like you're moving your hand right, you're moving your hand left, and that is upsetting me. Don't move your hand right. Don't move your hand left. And I know that sounds silly, but reality is that that's the way for me to communicate with people, not to communicate the way they like it and rough and like sit your butt down or da-da-da. Nah, like, can you just sit down and chill? Like, I might have some oomph in my voice, but like, I'm not going to be like, sit your ass down. No, we're not going to do that. No. Yes. And I'm not perfect. I always say this all the time. Like, I do curse, hence you guys have heard me, but you have to push me really, really far for me. I see you, Ray. Well, you know, tú sabes. But I really think, and here, guys, this is my field. So I've had years of working on me as a woman, and me as a mother, and me as just a daughter. I have had family issues and trauma and all of that. And it's been difficult and it's hurtful because you find yourself like, I don't deserve that. I don't deserve to be spoken that way. Even in a career, sometimes people try to talk to you and you have to check yourself. I'm going to hit up my girl, Missy Willis. Like, the other day she said to me, oh, they tried me. They almost saw old me, but I stayed professional and I gave them all of my professionalism. And I think that that's how we have to think about it is, what part of you do you want to give these people? Do you want to give them what they're calling crazy and abusive? Or do you want to give them like, I got my stuff together and you looking real dumb right now?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we are past an hour, but like I said, I can see what I want.
It's your show. You do what you want.
So that's right. So I want to invite those who are watching. Next week's show is what we promised would be once a month. Next week's show is Express Yourself, where the audience, you guys choose the topic. So what I always say when this is coming about, what I need you to do is go to our Instagram page of Love Should Not Hurt. Go to our Love Should Not Hurt Facebook page, or you can email me at Christina@loveshouldnothurt.com. Send me your email addresses and let me know that you are interested to join our show next week. We do not have a topic. We do this every month. It is the audience who comes on and they express themselves. You can come on and discuss how you feel about previous shows, what your input has been. You can talk about your own self-reflection if that's something you want to do. But we invite you, the audience, to join us on screen. Send us your email addresses, email, and I'll keep posting that all week. And let us know you'd like to be a part of our show. I'm glad that you guys are always here, but we want to bring you guys onto the screen. Share the screen with us. Give us your live feedback. We see you in our comment section, but we want to see your faces as well. Amanda, what is your closing thoughts for tonight's show? I'm going to leave you by yourself and your curls so you can give us your closing thoughts tonight.
So tonight I thought, I'm getting used to it now, now that I have like a monthly spot on the show. Thanks, y'all. And the one thing that stood out to me is sending you guys a very clear message. And I wanted to use my favorite poet, which was Maya Angelou. So if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to read really quickly, Still I Rise. A lot of you might know it, but I just wanted to read it to you guys. So bear with me. So Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you best with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of my huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from the past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I am a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Thank you for having me tonight yet again.
Girl! I'm on the other side of the screen, and as Carlos would say, CeeLo, if you were watching, 2 snaps and a clap. I love that poem. Love that poem, and you said it with so much woo as you said it. I love it. Well, thank you for always being here because you are phenomenal. Your input is always well taken. Let me tell you, I leave these show after I speak to you, and I sit in my room and I analyze myself after. Let me tell you, so that being honest here, because as I tell people, on here, I know you personally as a friend, but we don't have therapeutic conversations. We talk about craziness and we drink wine and we're laughing, but we don't have that moment. So these times with you on the screen are super helpful for me. So I love you and thank you so much for being here. We'll send you to the background like we always do, but stay there. We'll be back. So good evening. Thank you all for being with us during this hour and a few minutes more. I appreciate all of you for always just being a part of our stream, being a part of our show every week. I truly would love to have more of you on the screen with me next week. 3 or 4 of our audience members, come on, join us. It's not scary at all. It's like just having a conversation with me. And I'm happy all the time. So you guys come join us. Send me your email addresses. I would love to have you on screen. I will prepare you in advance so that you're ready for this once you get on. But please, like Amanda said, if you take anything conducive away from our conversation tonight, my point of view, if you've taken anything away from it, is just for myself, learning what my triggers are and learning how to better respond to those triggers. I think that sometimes we're in relationships where the people that we're with know way too much about our past sometimes. And they too can hurt us with that past because they know what our triggers are. They use them against us. And we're not in the moment thinking this is only to trigger me, only to make me look bad. So let's make that line that's very fine between the victim and the abuser. Let's make it thick. Let's make sure that we do not turn into that person because, like we said, words are not major to everyone, but they do hurt. They have longer lasting effects. And if you are someone who's dealt with any form of abuse or any form of just being spoken down to, know how bad you felt. know how bad they will feel with just what you're saying. So let's reciprocate some love, and let's do what Amanda said. If you need to, take that moment, walk away, tell that person, what I'm going to say is going to hurt you, so I'm going to walk away. And I'm telling myself this tonight as well, as an example for me. Sometimes I need to just turn my cheek and walk away because it's just better that way. Thank you guys for sharing your time with us, your evening. Amanda, you can come back to the screen with us. Thank you again, Mujer, for being amazing, como siempre.
Placer. Thank you guys for having me.
It's been a good night. Thank you all. Love you all. And we will see you next week, hopefully with some of you on the screen. Buenas noches, everybody. Good night.